The Christmas lights were twinkling against the December darkness when my world shattered into 1,000 jagged pieces. I'm Chrissy Chen, 32 years old, and until that night, I believed family meant something sacred and unbreakable. Our childhood home sat on 3 acres in suburban Connecticut, a white colonial with black shutters that Mom and Dad bought in 1985. They'd worked 2 jobs each to afford it, turning the house into a sanctuary filled with love, laughter, and the kind of memories that make you who you are. Dad passed from a heart attack 4.5 years ago, and Mom followed 18 months later after her battle with cancer. Losing them both so close together nearly destroyed me. My older sister Rebecca and I inherited everything equally: the house, their savings, Dad's life insurance. All of it split down the middle according to their will. Rebecca was 35, married to a real estate developer named Marcus Hoffman, and they had twin boys who were 7 years old. I was single, working as a freelance graphic designer and living in the house we inherited because Rebecca already owned a McMansion in the wealthy part of town. The arrangement seemed perfect at first. Rebecca got her half of the liquid assets, roughly $400,000. I got to live in the family home, which was valued at around $800,000, with the understanding that when we eventually sold it, we'd split everything equally after settling the remaining mortgage. We'd both signed documents with the estate lawyer Henry Watkins, making everything official and binding. Living there alone felt strange initially. Every corner held ghosts of better days. The kitchen where Mom taught me to make her famous apple pie. The living room where Dad would fall asleep watching football games. The backyard where Rebecca and I once built snow forts and declared ourselves queens of winter. But gradually, the house became mine in a way that felt right. I repainted the guest room into my design studio. I replaced the old furnace. I even started a small vegetable garden that Mom would have loved. Rebecca visited occasionally, always with Marcus and the boys. She'd walk through rooms with an evaluating eye, commenting on my choices with barely disguised criticism. "You painted Grandma's room gray. That's bold." Or, "You really should have consulted me before ripping out those cabinets." I tried ignoring the passive aggression, chalking it up to her controlling personality. Then came the casual mentions about money, how their investments weren't performing as expected, how Marcus's development project hit regulatory snags, how private school tuition kept increasing. She never asked directly, just planted seeds of financial worry whenever we spoke. The Christmas party was my idea. Actually, I wanted to host something beautiful to fill the house with family warmth again, like Mom used to do. I invited Rebecca and Marcus, their boys, our Aunt Patricia and Uncle George, our cousins, Jennifer and Michael, with their families, and a few close family friends. 23 people total, all the folks who mattered. I spent 3 days decorating. Fresh garland on the staircase, a 9-foot tree in the living room corner, covered in ornaments collected over generations, candles on every surface. I cooked for 2 days straight, preparing Mom's traditional feast: honey-glazed ham-roasted turkey garlic, mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, cranberry sauce from scratch, and 5 different pies. Everyone arrived around 6 on December 23rd. The house filled with voices and laughter, children running between rooms, adults catching up over mulled wine. It felt magical, exactly what I'd hoped for. Rebecca arrived fashionably late, wearing a designer dress that probably cost more than my car payment, Marcus trailing behind in an expensive suit. They seemed tense from the moment they walked in. Rebecca barely touched the food I prepared. Marcus kept checking his phone with increasing agitation. Around 8 o'clock, after dinner, when everyone gathered in the living room for gift exchange, Rebecca stood up and tapped her wineglass with a fork. "Everyone, can I have your attention, please?" Her voice carried that artificial sweetness she used when performing for an audience. The room quieted. Aunt Patricia paused mid-sentence. Uncle George lowered his eggnog. All eyes turned toward Rebecca, standing by the fireplace with the Christmas tree lights casting shadows across her face. "I have an announcement to make about this house." She smiled, but her eyes were cold. As many of you know, Chrissy and I inherited this property together when Mom passed. What you might not know is that maintaining 2 properties has been quite the financial burden for us. My stomach dropped. Something was wrong. Very wrong. After extensive discussions with our lawyers and financial advisors, I made a decision that's best for everyone involved. Rebecca reached into her expensive leather purse and pulled out a folder. "I already signed the deed. As of today, I'm the owner of this house." The room went silent. Someone's child dropped a toy car that clattered against the hardwood floor. I stood up, my legs shaking. What are you talking about? We both own this house. We have an agreement. Rebecca's smile widened, showing too many teeth. We had an agreement, sweetie. Things change. Marcus and I needed to consolidate assets. And frankly, you've been living here rent-free for 3 years while I got the short end of the inheritance. This balances things out. That's not true. We split everything according to Mom and Dad's will. The lawyer works for whoever pays him, Chrissy. Marcus spoke up for the first time, his voice dripping with condescension. We had our attorneys review everything. Rebecca's entitled to full ownership based on her initial capital contribution to the estate settlement. My hands were shaking so hard I had to clench them into fists. You can't just steal the house. That's not how any of this works. Aunt Patricia tried intervening. Rebecca, honey, maybe this isn't the right time or place. No, it's the perfect time. Rebecca's voice turned sharp as broken glass. Everyone should know the truth. Chrissy's been playing victim for years, living in our parents' house like some tragic orphan while I've been supporting this family. Well, the free ride ends now. I own this property legally and officially. If you don't like it, Chrissy, then get out of this family. The words hit me like physical blows. Faces around the room reflected shock, confusion, and discomfort. Cousin Jennifer's mouth hung open. Uncle George looked ready to argue but seemed frozen. The children sensed the tension and huddled closer to their parents. I felt tears burning behind my eyes, but refused to let them fall in front of everyone. My voice came out steadier than I felt. You're lying. You can't have the deed. This is my home. Rebecca pulled papers from the folder and waved them like a victory flag. Official documents filed with the county recorder's office 3 days ago. Done and legal. You have 30 days to vacate, though I'm being generous by letting you stay through Christmas. The room erupted. Aunt Patricia started yelling at Rebecca about family loyalty. Uncle George demanded to see the papers. Marcus stood behind Rebecca like a guard dog smirking at the chaos they'd created. I stood there, watching my family fracture in real time, watching my sister destroy everything our parents built with a few poisonous sentences. I didn't scream or cry or beg. Instead, I walked very calmly to the coat closet, grabbed my winter jacket, my purse, and my car keys. The party continued disintegrating behind me, voices raised in anger and confusion. Where are you going? Rebecca called out, her voice slightly less confident now. Away from you, I said quietly. Then I walked out the front door into the freezing December night, leaving behind the home I loved and the family I thought I knew. I drove to a Holiday Inn 15 miles away and checked into a room that smelled like industrial cleaner and disappointment. Only then, sitting on the scratchy bedspread under fluorescent lights, did I let myself fall apart. I cried for my parents who trusted us to honor their legacy. I cried for the sister I'd lost somewhere along the way. I cried for the home that held every important memory of my life. Then I got angry, really truly furious in a way I'd never experienced before, the kind of anger that burns cold and clear and focuses your mind like a laser. Rebecca thought she'd won, thought she could steal everything and face no consequences. She'd humiliated me in front of our entire family, weaponizing a holiday gathering to declare her victory. But here's what my sister didn't know. I'm not the naive little girl she remembered. I'd spent 3 years managing the house, which meant I knew every detail of its condition, its history, and most importantly, its secrets. The next morning, Christmas Eve, I called Henry Watkins at his personal number. He answered on the third ring, sounding confused. Chrissy, is everything all right? I heard there was some commotion at your Christmas party. Henry, I need you to tell me exactly what Rebecca did with the house deed. There was a long pause. What do you mean? The deed's been filed jointly in both your names since we settled the estate. Standard tenancy and common arrangement. Why? My heart started pounding. Rebecca claims she signed papers transferring ownership solely to her name. She showed documents to the family. Another pause longer this time. I heard papers shuffling in the background. That's impossible. Any deed transfer would require both owner signatures notarized and witnessed. I certainly didn't process anything like that. Let me check the county records. I waited while Henry pulled up the property records online. When he came back on the line, his voice was tight with professional anger. Chrissy, the deed is still in both names, exactly as it's been for 3 years. No changes, no transfers. If Rebecca showed anyone documents claiming otherwise, they're either fraudulent or completely different property entirely. I closed my eyes, feeling the pieces click into place. So she lied. She made up everything. It appears so, which is concerning on several levels, particularly if she's claiming ownership to induce you to vacate. That could constitute fraud, possibly even attempted theft by deception. Henry's lawyer voice kicked into high gear. I need to see whatever documents she showed your family. Can you get copies? I'll handle it. But Henry, I need you to do something for me. Several somethings, actually. We talked for 45 minutes. I explained my suspicions, my observations over the past 3 years, and what I needed from him legally. Henry listened carefully, asked precise questions, and agreed to start working immediately despite the holiday. Next, I called my friend Rachel Martinez, who worked as an investigative journalist for the Hartford Courant. We'd gone to college together and stayed close over the years. She answered, sounding cheerful, despite the early hour. "Chrissy, Merry Christmas Eve. How was your party?" "It was educational," I said. "Rachel, I need a favor. A big one. And it involves real estate fraud, possibly forged documents, and my sociopathic sister." Rachel's tone shifted instantly to professional interest. "Tell me everything." I laid out the situation while Rachel took notes. When I finished, she let out a low whistle. "Your sister sounds like a piece of work. What do you need from me?" "I need you to investigate Marcus's development company. He's been acting desperate lately, and I want to know why. Can you dig into their finances, project status, anything public record?" "Consider it done. Give me 24 hours. Nobody works on Christmas anyway, so I've got time." Rachel paused. "Are you okay? This is a lot to deal with during the holidays." "I'm functional. I'll be better once I understand what I'm dealing with." "Fair enough. I'll call you tomorrow. And Chrissy, whatever you're planning, make it count." I spent Christmas Eve making phone calls and sending emails. I contacted the 3 contractors who'd done work on the house over the past 3 years, requesting copies of all invoices and payment records. I reached out to the mortgage company for a complete payment history. I pulled up 3 years of utility bills, property tax records, and homeowners insurance documents. The first contractor I spoke with was Jimmy Morrison, who had replaced the entire HVAC system 18 months ago, a $12,000 job that Rebecca had known about but contributed nothing toward. Jimmy remembered the situation clearly because I'd apologized for having to pay in installments over 3 months. "Your sister never even came by to look at the work," he recalled. "I remember asking if you needed her signature on anything, and you said the house was yours to manage." That stuck with me because most co-owners want to be involved in major repairs. I asked him to send me copies of every invoice, every email exchange, and any notes he had about the job. He agreed immediately, sensing something serious was happening. The second contractor, Maria Delgado, had rebuilt the back deck after winter damage had made it unsafe, $8,000 I'd paid for from my savings account. She'd actually met Rebecca once when my sister stopped by during construction to check on things, but really just to criticize my choice of materials. She acted like she owned the place, Maria said, with a laugh that held no humor. Walked around pointing out things she would have done differently, but when I mentioned the payment schedule, she said that was all your responsibility. I thought it was strange at the time. The third contractor, Robert Chen, no relation despite the shared last name, had handled various smaller repairs over the years. New roof shingles, gutter replacement, fixing the cracked driveway, another $6,000 in combined costs. He kept meticulous records because he ran his business with the precision of someone who had been audited too many times. "I have everything digitized," he assured me. "Every receipt, every work order, every email where you explained what needed fixing. I'll send you a complete file tonight." True to his word, by 10 p.m. on Christmas Eve, my inbox was filling with documentation. Invoices with my name as the sole payer. Work orders specifying me as the point of contact. Email threads where I discussed repairs schedules and budgets without any input from Rebecca. 3 years of evidence proving I maintained the house alone, while my sister contributed absolutely nothing beyond criticism and complaints. Then I started going through my emails, every single message exchanged with Rebecca since Mom's passing. I created a folder documenting every time she'd acknowledged our joint ownership, every time she'd approved my decisions about the house, every time she discussed our eventual plan to sell and split the proceeds. One email from 14 months ago stood out particularly. I'd asked Rebecca if she wanted to contribute to the property tax payment that year, explaining that the assessment had increased and the bill was substantial. Her response had been dismissive. "You're living there rent-free, Chrissy. The least you can do is cover the taxes. Consider it your contribution to the family estate." Another email from 2 years ago showed her explicitly acknowledging our equal ownership. I'd suggested we might want to consider selling within the next 5 years before the house needed major renovations we couldn't afford. Rebecca's response: "Let's wait until the market improves. We both benefit from holding on to the property longer. No rush to sell our house when values are still climbing." Our house. She'd written those words herself, acknowledging joint ownership in writing. I highlighted the phrase, added it to my documentation folder, and continued searching. There were dozens more emails where she'd approved my decision to hire contractors, messages where she discussed the eventual sale and how we'd split the proceeds, texts where she'd referred to it as our inheritance and our family home. Every single communication contradicted the story she told at the Christmas party, and every single one was dated timestamped and impossible to deny. By midnight, I had a file 2 inches thick, documenting my sole financial responsibility for the property, despite our equal ownership. Every mortgage payment from my account, every repair bill I'd paid, every property tax installment, insurance premium, and utility charge. 3 years of me maintaining our family home, while Rebecca contributed absolutely nothing. Christmas Day passed in a blur of research and documentation. Rachel called around noon with preliminary findings. Okay, so Marcus's company is in serious trouble, she said. They started a luxury condo development 2 years ago that stalled at 60% completion. Permitting issues, contractor disputes, and cost overruns. They're bleeding money, probably $500,000 in the red at least. There's also a lawsuit from investors claiming misrepresentation. How bad is it, I asked. Bad enough that they're probably facing bankruptcy, unless they inject serious capital soon. My source says they've been trying to secure additional financing, but keep getting rejected due to the pending litigation. Rachel's voice carried vindictive satisfaction. Your sister married a man who's circling the financial drain. That explains the desperate play for the house, I said. They need assets to borrow against or liquidate. Exactly. Want me to keep digging? Absolutely. I need everything you can find. While Rachel continued her investigation, I turned my attention to something that had been nagging at me since the Christmas party the documents Rebecca had waved around. Where had she gotten them? They looked official enough to fool our family at first glance, which meant someone had created convincing forgeries. That took resources, knowledge, and frankly a level of premeditation that made my blood run cold. I called a friend from college, Derek Washington, who had become a paralegal at a downtown Hartford law firm. We kept in touch over the years, occasionally meeting for coffee when he needed design work for his firm's marketing materials. Derek, I need to ask you something confidential. If someone wanted to create fake property documents, transfers, ownership papers, that sort of thing, how would they do it? He was quiet for a long moment. Chrissy, what's going on? This sounds serious. I gave him the abbreviated version of the Christmas party disaster. He listened without interrupting, and when I finished, he let out a low whistle. Your sister's playing a dangerous game. Forging legal documents is a felony, especially property deeds. We're talking potential criminal charges, not just civil penalties. He paused, thinking. To answer your question, though, there are template services online where you can generate official-looking documents. They're meant for educational purposes or draft creation, but someone could misuse them. They wouldn't hold up to any real scrutiny, wrong watermarks, incorrect filing numbers, missing seals, but they'd look convincing to lay people. So she probably did it herself, or had Marcus do it, I said. Most likely. The alternative would be finding a corrupt lawyer willing to create fraudulent documents, which is rare because the consequences are career-ending. My guess is they found a template online, filled in fake information, and printed it on nice paper banking, on shock value and family dynamics to prevent anyone from looking too closely. It worked until I left and called the real lawyer. Exactly. The scam falls apart the moment anyone verifies the information, which is why this whole thing was so reckless. Even if you'd been scared into leaving, you would have discovered the truth eventually when you tried to find a new place or access your share of the equity. Derek's voice held professional disapproval. This was never going to work long term. It was a desperation play by people who weren't thinking past the immediate moment. That assessment matched everything else I was learning about Rebecca and Marcus's situation. They were drowning financially, grasping at anything that might keep them afloat for another few months. The house represented equity they could borrow against or liquidate. My sister had probably convinced herself that I'd be fine, that I could find another place to live, that she needed it more than I did. The rationalization of desperate people had never been clearer. Derek, can you help me document the fraud aspect? I want to make sure everything's properly recorded. If this goes to court, send me photos of the documents if you can get them. I'll analyze them and prepare a report detailing the forgery indicators. Should be useful if you decide to press charges or if this becomes a civil matter. He hesitated. Are you okay? This is a lot to process, especially during the holidays. I'm angry, I admitted. angrier than I've ever been, but I'm also clear-headed about what needs to happen. My sister crossed the line and there have to be consequences. Fair enough. Send me whatever you've got and I'll start working on it. After hanging up with Derek, I realized I didn't actually have photos of Rebecca's fake documents. They'd been in her hands at the party, waved around dramatically, but never distributed for examination. I needed copies, which meant I needed to get them from Rebecca herself, or find another way to document what she'd shown everyone. Then I remembered Cousin Jennifer's husband, Tom. He always filmed family gatherings, fancying himself an amateur videographer. If he'd been filming when Rebecca made her announcement, I'd have video evidence of her displaying the forged documents. I sent Tom a text message. Hey, I know this is awkward given everything that happened, but were you filming during Rebecca's announcement at the Christmas party? If so, would you be willing to send me that footage? I need it for legal purposes. His response came back within minutes. Already saved that section separately. Figured you might need it. Jennifer's furious at Rebecca. We'll help however we can. Sending the file now. 10 minutes later, I had a high-definition video of my sister's betrayal. The footage was damning. You could see Rebecca pulling the folder from her purse with practiced confidence. You could watch her remove papers and hold them up for the room to see. The camera angle wasn't perfect, but you could make out enough details to confirm the documents looked official at first glance, while missing elements that actual deed transfers would have. More importantly, the video captured her exact words. I already signed the deed. As of today, I'm the owner of this house. Clear audio, her voice confident and cruel. If you don't like it, get out of this family. No ambiguity, no room for her to later claim she'd been misunderstood or taken out of context. I sent the video to Derek, to Henry, and to Rachel. Then I saved 3 backup copies in different cloud storage accounts. Whatever happened next, I had evidence that couldn't be disputed or dismissed. Henry called that evening with more information. I filed a formal complaint with the county about potential deed fraud. They'll investigate, though it might take weeks. However, I also discovered something interesting in the property records. What's that? Your parents took out a home equity line of credit about 6 months before your father passed, $50,000. It was paid off by the estate. But the interesting part is what they used it for, which was, according to the bank records, I subpoenaed they paid for your sister's wedding. The entire amount went to wedding vendors, the venue, the caterer, everything. I felt something fierce and protective rise in my chest. Meanwhile, Henry continued. They paid for your college education outright years earlier. Same amount roughly. So financially speaking, they'd already balanced things between you two before the inheritance. My parents were fair, I said quietly. Yes, they were. Rebecca's claim of getting the short end was another lie. I'm documenting all of this already. I'm building a complete financial history of the estate settlement and subsequent property management. It's going to be very difficult for Rebecca to claim any form of inequitable treatment. The day after Christmas, Rebecca called me. I let it go to voicemail 3 times before finally answering. What do you want, Chrissy? She said. Don't be dramatic. I'm calling to discuss logistics for your move. I'm not moving. A sharp laugh. Sweetie, you don't have a choice. I own the house now. You need to accept reality and start packing. Here's my reality, Rebecca. I spoke with Henry Watkins. The deed is still in both our names. You lied to everyone at the party, probably showed them fake documents, and committed fraud in front of 23 witnesses. Silence on the other end. Chrissy, you don't know what you're talking about. I know exactly what I'm talking about. I also know about Marcus's failed development and the pending lawsuit. I know you're desperate for money and thought you could scare me out of the house so you could sell it and take the proceeds. How am I doing so far? More silence. I could practically hear her recalculating. You can't prove anything, she finally said, but her voice had lost its confidence. Actually, I can prove everything I said. Every payment I've made on the house for 3 years. Every expense I've covered while you contributed nothing. Every email where you acknowledged our joint ownership. Every contractor, every utility company, every tax bill. I have documentation of all of it. That doesn't matter. We own it equally, which means I can force a sale. You could try, I agreed. But judges tend to frown on co-owners who've contributed 0 to property maintenance, trying to force sales on co-owners who've paid for everything, especially when the non-contributing owner attempted fraud to scare away the contributing owner. How do you think that'll play out in court? I heard Marcus's voice in the background, sharp and angry. Rebecca's voice turned pleading. Chrissy, please, we need this. You don't understand the pressure we're under. The pressure you created through bad business decisions and terrible judgment. That's not my problem. Fine, she said. What do you want? I want you to confess, I said. I want you to tell the family that you lied, that everything you said at the party was fraudulent manipulation. I want a public apology in front of everyone you humiliated me in front of. That's not happening. Then I'll see you in court. I'm filing a lawsuit for partition, and I'm also filing a complaint about your attempted fraud. Henry's already started the paperwork. We can do this the easy way or the expensive way, but either method ends with the truth coming out. Rebecca hung up without another word. New Year's Eve arrived with me, still at the Holiday Inn, though I'd moved into an extended stay room to make the limbo more bearable. Rachel delivered her final investigation report over dinner at a Thai restaurant near my hotel. She slid a thick folder across the table, her expression equal parts professional and grim. Marcus is in deeper trouble than I initially thought, she said. The investor lawsuit claims he misappropriated funds using money designated for construction to cover personal expenses. There's evidence he borrowed from the development account to pay for things like his kids' private school tuition and country club memberships. That's embezzlement, I said. Yes, the investors want their money back, plus damages. If they win, Marcus could face criminal charges alongside the civil judgment. The company will definitely go bankrupt, and he might lose everything personally, too. Does Rebecca know how bad it is? Hard to say. She's listed as a corporate officer, so legally she's on the hook, too, if they can prove she knew about the misappropriation. At minimum, she'll lose whatever money Marcus invested from her inheritance share. I studied the documents Rachel had compiled: bank statements, legal filings, interviews with disgruntled contractors and investors. It painted a picture of a couple in complete financial freefall, desperate enough to try stealing a house from family. This is incredible work, I said. Thank you. My pleasure, Rachel replied. Crooked developers are my favorite targets. She grinned, then grew serious. So what's your next move? I'm going to give Rebecca one more chance to do the right thing, I said. After that, everything goes nuclear. I drafted an email that took me 3 hours to write. Professional, detailed, and absolutely devastating. I laid out every piece of evidence I'd collected: financial records, emails, contractor statements. I explained the legal consequences of her attempted fraud. I attached copies of Rachel's investigative report about Marcus's business failures. Then I gave her a choice: come clean to the family and agree to a formal partition agreement acknowledging my 3 years of sole financial contribution, or face public exposure lawsuits and potential criminal fraud charges. I sent it at midnight on New Year's Eve, copying Henry, Rachel, and my own secondary email account for backup. Then I went to sleep feeling emptier than I'd felt in years, but also grimly satisfied. Rebecca didn't respond for 3 days. When she finally called, her voice sounded broken in a way I'd never heard before. You win, she said quietly. I'll tell everyone the truth. Not good enough, I replied. I want it in writing, notarized. I want a formal agreement drafted by Henry acknowledging the property split in my favor for expenses. I want compensation for 3 years of sole maintenance payments. Chrissy, we don't have any money, she said. Marcus's company is collapsing. We're probably going to lose the house we're living in. Again, not my problem, I said. You created this situation through greed and lies. You tried to steal from me, your own sister, using our parents' legacy as your weapon. She was crying now, ugly, desperate sobs. Please, the boys' school, our life, everything is falling apart. I made a mistake. I'm sorry. You're sorry you got caught, I said. There's a difference. I took a breath, fighting my own tears. You stood in our parents' house and told me to get out of the family. You humiliated me in front of everyone who matters to us. You weaponized Christmas, Rebecca. You turned the one holiday Mom loved most into a nightmare. Sorry doesn't fix that. What do you want me to do? Henry will send you documents. Sign them. Then we'll arrange a family gathering where you explain exactly what you did and why. After that, we'll discuss the partition and sale of the house. You'll get your legal share minus what you owe me for maintenance. And if I don't, then every piece of evidence I have goes public. Rachel's already written the article. She's just waiting for my permission to publish. It details Marcus's business fraud, your attempted deed scam, everything. Your name, his name, all of it. Plus, I pursue maximum legal penalties for the fraud attempt. She agreed. What else could she do? The family meeting happened in mid-January at Aunt Patricia's house. Everyone who attended the Christmas party was there, faces curious and concerned. Rebecca and Marcus sat on one couch looking like defendants at trial. I sat across from them, feeling older than my years. Rebecca read from a prepared statement Henry had helped me draft. She admitted lying about the deed. She confessed to creating fake documents to scare me out of the house. She explained their financial desperation without going into details about Marcus's legal troubles. She apologized specifically and directly to me, her voice shaking with what might have been genuine remorse. The family's reactions was brutal. Aunt Patricia, who'd always favored Rebecca, looked disgusted. Uncle George wouldn't make eye contact with either of them. Cousin Jennifer left halfway through with her kids, saying she couldn't listen anymore. The room's atmosphere felt like a funeral. When Rebecca finished, I stood up and addressed everyone myself. I'm selling the house. It's too full of painful memories now, and I need a fresh start. Rebecca and I will split the proceeds legally and fairly minus expenses I've covered over 3 years. After that, I need distance from this situation and possibly from some people in this family. I looked directly at Rebecca. I hope you get your life together. I hope Marcus faces consequences for his business decisions. I hope your boys never find out what their parents tried to do, but I also hope I never have to see or speak to you again. Her face crumpled, but I felt nothing. The sister I loved died the moment she told me to get out of the family. This person was just a stranger wearing Rebecca's face. The house sold in March for $850,000, slightly above the appraisal. After paying off the remaining mortgage of $60,000 covering 3 years of expenses, I documented totaling another $112,000 and accounting for legal fees of $38,000. The remaining equity was $540,000, split equally as co-owners that should have been $270,000 each. However, since I paid all the expenses myself, I received my half-plus reimbursement for those costs, $382,000. Rebecca's share came to $158,000. Henry handled everything professionally, ensuring every calculation was documented and transparent. Rebecca signed the paperwork without argument. Marcus didn't even show up to the closing. I heard through family gossip that Marcus's company filed for bankruptcy in April. The investor lawsuit was still pending, likely to drag on for years. Rebecca and Marcus sold their McMansion and moved to a modest rental house in a cheaper town. The boys switched to public school. Rebecca got a job as a cashier at Target while Marcus was working construction. The $158,000 from the house sale probably went straight to legal fees and debt payments. Everything they built on borrowed money and stolen opportunities collapsed exactly as it deserved to. I took my share of the house sale and moved to Portland, Oregon. Complete fresh start, new city, new life. I rented a small apartment near downtown and started rebuilding my design business from scratch. Some of my Connecticut clients followed me. Others I replaced with new contacts in the Pacific Northwest. Aunt Patricia called occasionally to share family news I mostly didn't want to hear. They were struggling, but surviving. The boys seemed resilient. Rebecca asked about me, sometimes wondering if I'd ever forgive her. I don't know, I told Aunt Patricia honestly. Maybe someday. But right now I'm focusing on building a life that nobody can take away from me. 3 years have passed since that terrible Christmas party. I'm 35 now, 3 years older, and considerably wiser than the woman who walked out into the December cold that night. I built a successful design business with clients across the country. I bought a small condo with a view of the mountains. I'm dating a kind man named David who knows my history and loves me anyway. Sometimes I dream about the house in Connecticut, about Christmas lights and Mom's apple pie and snow forts in the backyard. Those dreams used to make me cry. Now they just make me sad for what we lost, for what Rebecca threw away for money she never even got. I received a letter from her last month forwarded through Aunt Patricia. Pages of apology, explanation, and regret. She called her actions unforgivable. She acknowledged the damage she'd caused. She said she understood if I never wanted contact again, but hoped maybe someday we could talk. I haven't responded yet. Maybe I will eventually. Maybe I won't. The betrayal cut too deep, exposed too much fraud in a relationship I thought was solid. You can't ring that bell or unknow what someone's capable of doing to you when they're desperate. But here's what I've learned. Revenge isn't about destroying the person who hurt you. It's about refusing to let them destroy you. It's about standing up with evidence and truth when someone tries to steal your life through lies. It's about making sure actions have consequences, even when those consequences hurt people you used to love. Rebecca thought she could take everything because I was the younger sister, the quieter one, the one who wouldn't fight back. She gambled on my passivity and lost spectacularly. The house sold, the money got split fairly, and she ended up with a fraction of what she'd schemed to steal, plus the lasting stain of her attempted fraud. Was it worth it? Losing my sister, fracturing the family, spending months angry and hurt and plotting justice? I don't know. Some days I think I should have been. The bigger person should have found forgiveness and moved forward without forcing consequences. Other days, I know that what I did was necessary, that letting her steal from me would have destroyed me in ways far worse than the pain of fighting back. What I do know is this: I survived. I rebuilt. I'm happy now in ways I wasn't before because I learned I'm stronger than I believed possible. I learned I can stand up for myself even when it costs me relationships I thought were essential. I learned that family isn't sacred when it's built on lies and manipulation. The house is gone now. Sold to a young couple with 2 daughters who send me photos sometimes of the place redecorated with their own memories. The money I got from it sits invested, growing steadily. Security I built by refusing to be a victim. Rebecca's "no way tell me this isn't true" moment came when she realized I had evidence of everything. When her smug certainty shattered against the reality of documentation and truth, she understood too late that she'd underestimated me. She thought she was smart, thought she planned everything perfectly. She forgot that the little sister she dismissed had grown into someone who pays attention, keeps records, and fights back when cornered. That Christmas party destroyed my family as I'd known it, but sometimes things need to break completely before you can see what they really were. And what my relationship with Rebecca really was, underneath the surface warmth, was a hierarchy where she saw herself as entitled to more, deserving of better, and willing to take whatever she wanted, regardless of the cost to me. I'm better off without that in my life. Lonelier sometimes, sure, but free in ways I didn't know I needed. If I could go back to that night, standing in the living room with Christmas lights twinkling, while my sister announced she'd stolen my home, would I do anything differently? I don't think so.